Shri Vishakha Vikamstu, He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinapanta Vidakate, Gopesha Gopika Kamta Radha Kamta Namostute, Kapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Krishna Manustute Devi Pranamami Nadeviye, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuyecha, Vitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so today we will talked about conflict resolution, so now we'll talk about does that echo have to be there? Or it's just by the nature of the microphone? It's okay. Ourselves as people who, as devotees in general, and as those who are trying to help others, leading a good life, let's say. You know, I know it's a cliche, but we all know the example of when you're on the airplane and they say, you put on your mask first before you help somebody else, right? So that's kind of the subject matter of today's discussion, okay? About putting our mask on first. So let me share my screen. Let's see if it works. It's still thinking about it. Just now coming, maybe. Whoops. There we go. There we go. Hare Krishna. Okay. So leading a healthy, Krishna conscious, balanced life. Okay? So we know this is one of the most famous verses in the Bhagavad Gita. It's so important that it's mentioned twice, basically, almost identically. In which chapter? What's the other chapter that this is mentioned? 18th chapter, yes. So it tells us how to perform bhakti by always thinking of Krishna, offering obeisances to him, becoming his devotee, etc. It's very simple, right? That's all you have to do 24/7. Any problem with that? No problem, right? And the next verse also, in a similar vein, that just surrender fully to Krishna, and then he'll take care of everything. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshesha. You know, so he'll take care of everything. All we have to do is surrender. No problem. Anyone have a problem just thinking of Krishna 24/7 and surrendering to him? No problem, right? Now you're the only one who has a problem, probably. It's not easy, right? And fortunately for us, Krishna has, he gives other prescriptions if we can't fully do this, although it's very important to set the goal. Right? So just like, you know, Arjuna could do it. Arjuna, you know the story, right, where he was taking prasadam and the candle went out and he realized he could still continue eating, right, without any side, you know, it was totally dark. They could still continue eating. So he figured, if I can still continue eating, I could also continue doing my archery at night, right? And so he was fully surrendered to his service to Krishna, so he even did that. But for many of us, we're lucky that there's this verse, right? If you can't fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga. So do sadhana. Do practice. What is sadhana? Sadhana means practice, right? It's practice. And in this way, we'll come to that other level of manmana bhava bhakta bhakto, right? So we're very fortunate that Krishna has given us this verse to say that, okay, you can't always think of me, okay, then do your sadhana, do your practice of bhakti, right? Makes sense? So how to live a balanced life, right? So the word balanced, and even distribution of weight, enabling someone or something to remain upright and steady. Isn't that what happened? It'll come back? Okay. Just now coming, yeah. So isn't that what we, in one sense, what we want to be in bhakti? We want to be upright, we want to not fall down, but we want to be standing up. And we want to be steady. Matter of fact, one of the, ado shraddha tatra sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya. What's the next one? Anartha nivritti, and then nishta. Right, so steadiness is a good preliminary goal for devotees. It's not the prayojan, it's not prema, but it's a good preliminary goal for many of us to be steady in our devotional service. So balance is important in that regard. And it's interesting, Srila Bhakti Thakur says that these four things we have to take care of until we reach the level of bhava. So bhava is very advanced, right? There's 9 stages. What comes after nishta? Ashakti, then ruchi. Ruchi, yeah. And then bhava, and then prema. Right? So so bhava is very, very good. So until we get there, we actually need to have these 4 things in our life. Of course, spirituality, that's what we talk when someone's sitting on this seat all the time. But it doesn't mean we can neglect our physical and emotional, social life. They can all be dovetailed in Krishna consciousness. That's no problem, right? Anashaktasya vishayan yartaham payunjita nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya uchate. That we want to have the Krishna sambandha, the connection with Krishna when we're taking care of our health, when we're trying to satisfy our emotional and social needs. Okay, but this is right from our great Acharya Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this because this is something from my secular work. They talk about resilience. It was especially a huge topic during COVID. Right? How do you remain sane when you're, of course it wasn't so bad here in Singapore, I heard, but in many parts of the world when you're stuck in your room or stuck in your house or stuck in your flat for months and months and months. So, but it's very similar. My point is, what the non-devotees have come up with is something very similar to what Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying. Cognitive would be, cognitive and meaning-making is what we would call the spiritual. And then we have the emotional, physical, recreational, might be social. I just thought I found it interesting that it was, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, again, he wrote this 150, 40, 30 years ago, something like that, and then non-devotees come up with something 130 years later. Okay, so as far as physical care, there's no possibility, this is from Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, there's no possibility of one becoming a yogi or Arjuna if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. How much sleep should we get? Is this like an auction? Do I hear 6? Do I hear 7? Depends on ourselves, yes. Anyone any other answers? Most devotees answer 6 because in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, one of Srila Prabhupada's purports, he mentions that anyone who sleeps more than 6 hours is affected by the mode of ignorance. So then that's usually the main book that we read, like Bhagavad Gita as it is. So that's usually when I ask devotees that's how they answer. But we do have to look at other things Srila Prabhupada said. Sometimes he said 6 to 7 hours, sometimes he said 6 to 8 hours. Even one time he mentioned 10 hours. And when I was a Sankirtan leader in the West, in America, that means on Sankirtan you have to go drive a car someplace. So I made sure that anyone who drove a car got at least 8 hours sleep. Because so many times devotees in the 70s and 80s, they were getting into car accidents because they were like falling asleep when they were driving, right? So anyway, but the idea is whatever, as Prabhuji is saying, what our body needs, but not in excess or not too little. Now, of course, we also know that people like Srila Prabhupada slept very little. And the six Goswamis similarly. But we also have to remember that was a natural outcome of their pure bhakti. And one time, probably, there was a whole discussion with a reporter, and the reporter was saying, "Well, I read somewhere that you tell your disciples to eat more, to not sleep more than 6 hours. How many hours do you get?" And somebody said, "Well, it takes about 4 hours." Prabhupada said, 4 hours? No, I sleep 2.5 hours in the evening, then I take a nap during the day. Plus. So anyway, it was the reporter was trying to say, you're taking advantage of your disciples. You tell them to perform austerities, but you don't. But that's actually not the case. And similarly, eating too much, eating too little. When someone first comes to Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada sometimes said, eat up to the neck. Right? Until you sometimes you waddle like a duck. Right? That's okay. That's good, right? A new devotee, they're just getting purified. I remember sometimes when anyone ever heard the term blooping? Yes? What does it mean? Leaving Krishna consciousness, yes. So sometimes when young men were wanting to bloop, then Tamal Krishna Maharaj would make a huge pot of halava. And just, they'd finish it, you'd add more, they'd finish it, you'd add more, then they wouldn't leave after eating all that halava. But then when you get my age, or even as we're trying to be healthy, we discriminate, even though it's all prasadam, we discriminate what kind of prasadam we have, how much we eat, right? It's a different time in our life. And we sometimes, we try to eat in a very healthy way, except maybe festivals, and you can have as many pakoras as you like, or samosas or things, but you get the idea. But this is an important verse from the Bhagavad Gita. And then similarly, the next verse, he is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work, and mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. I think we mentioned the other day that Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur says that for a yogi, walking is great recreation. And Vaishnava sports, swimming is a Vaishnava thing that Vaishnavas do. Wrestling, I don't know if the Matajis wrestle, but at least the men wrestle. These are things that we can do. But it is good to take care of our health. And we may do yoga, we may do pranayama, we may lift some weights, but whatever we do, the idea is that Bhaktivinoda Thakur's first priority was physical, because we all know when we're sick, isn't it hard to chant your rounds? Isn't it hard to pick up beads? There's no prana. The prana is not flowing properly in the body, and it's really difficult. So we should take care of we should take physical care. It's not Maya to take care of your health. When I was in the 70s, the young brahmachari, we didn't do very well on this one. I don't think we read this. We skipped this chapter, maybe while reading the Bhagavad Gita. I remember I would, when I would take out the garbage at the temple, and the snow was up to here, just walk barefoot out in the snow, no problem. Not a very smart thing for one's health, right? Or we would just sometimes on Sankirtan we would just buy some cream cheese and dates, and or even worse than that, butter and dates. That is not very good for your health, right? Or we would try to save as much money as possible. So when we were on traveling Sankirtan, we would only buy cabbage and potatoes because they were the cheapest vegetables. Right? So we would, and the cheapest rice, and we just try to save every penny of Krishna's money. But it wasn't very good for our health. Right? So having a balanced life is important. So this is the first part, balancing our health. It doesn't mean we have to read every book that comes out on health and try this new diet and that new diet, but just being sane. being smart. Makes sense?
Yeah.
So what questions, comments, thoughts on physical balance? Yes, Boo?
For sleep, in respect to sleep, is it correct to say that as per our activities in the day or as per our gunas by which we are affected? So somebody is leading a very, his profession is, his or her profession is very sattvic, then they may not need so much sleep. Whereas somebody is doing hard work, you need more sleep. So it depends on the...
Maybe. At the same time, in the fourth canto, I believe it is, Prabhupada writes that if you don't get enough sleep, your intelligence isn't going to work well. I mean, anyone have that experience? Sometimes you either jet lag or you only get 2 hours sleep and then you feel foggy, right? So even in terms of, let's say you have a sedentary, let's say you study Sanskrit all day long, you still need to address that concern, right? But what Prabhupada did say was about eating. He said if you work like an elephant, you can eat like an elephant, right? If you're doing physical labor all day long, right? Naturally you need more fuel, right? And then if you're doing sedentary work, you probably want to be more careful, otherwise you start getting a pot belly. Yeah. So he did talk about that. He did talk about about eating relating to your active nature. Okay? Yes, Boo?
Probably you mean people on the laptop watching all the doing work on desktop, so they need to eat less.
They should fast all day long. They can have some water in the evening. They should be careful. They should make sure they're doing some exercise. Even non-devotees say every 20 minutes you should stand up at least for a minute or two, maybe do some stretching, something, or go in front of your deities, dance for a few minutes, because it's a very sedentary life. Again, Srinivas Prabhu yesterday when we were talking about his living in a village, and he said, you never heard about strokes and heart attacks and cancer things, because it was a very healthy life, and you'd work the fields and things like that, and now everyone's just, like I mentioned when I was in South Korea, it was amazing. Everybody on the street. Yeah, so we do need to adjust according to, and probably many of us have information technology. Anything else on health? Yes, Manjuji?
Food should be breaking.
Food should be?
Should be break. Instead of eating one shot.
Yeah, it should be, yeah. Well, different bodies, but Ayurveda says we have our main meal around when the sun is the highest, which in Singapore is about 1 o'clock. And I was mentioning a home program the other day. It's in India, people have such bad eating habits. They have their big meal at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, many people, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the worst thing you can do. And the kind of thing, it's all very fried. And, so when I get invited to people's homes in India, I say milk and some fruit. Mukunda Maharaj, he used to go out every day in Washington, D.C. preaching. He made so many people devotees. And he would go to their homes and he would just say like milk and fruit. And he would leave early. And he would just go, he would ask them to get home from work early. So 5 o'clock, he'd say. And they would do it because he's sannyasi and one of Prabhupada's first disciples. And by 6:30, he was back at the temple. He was very regulated like that. Yeah, so if you can, that's, try to follow some of these basic Ayurvedic principles. It's a good idea. Yeah. Anything else?
Can you elaborate on the walking? You said something about Vishwanath.
Oh, he says that when the word recreation, he comments on this verse. And his commentary says that for a yogi, recreation is walking. And we see that Prabhupada, I think we taught, Prabhupada walked, and he walked so fast that his 20-year-old disciples had trouble keeping up with him. Amazing. He would walk so fast. So he really followed that. Prabhupada would, take advice from any place, you know. So this was just some doctor just said, you know, well, Swamiji, you should walk more, right? Like that. Another doctor told him to take massage, things like that, right? So the Prabhupada would walk almost every day, right? We have all those recordings of his morning walks in places. And I remember Gopal Krishna Maharaj watching him in Juhu every day. Circumvent, you can go in Juhu if anyone's been there. Kind of do a little circle, doing it every day. So yeah.
So he's referring to a Bhakti yogi because if you look at the Himalayan yogis, they don't focus on walking.
I can only quote what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. He wasn't a Himalayan yogi, he was a great soul. I can't say, well, they had a whole different program. Look at what they eat, look how their life was. Very, very different. Yeah. So we have to adjust, remember yesterday, according to time, place, and circumstance. Right? So some devotees go to the gym, things that, that isn't mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Because they didn't exist. All right, let's move on. So social and emotional care, this is something we think, oh, that's not important for us. And Prabhupada writes, this is in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, the mental disease of the present generation is more acute than the bodily diseases. Wow, that's a heavy statement. Because we all know about our bodily diseases, right? We've all, have been sick, this or that, and in my age, it seems like everything starts to go wrong, right? But still, the mental disease is even worse. And one time Prabhupada told Vraj Bihari, we are social animals. If you don't associate nicely with devotees, then you'll associate with non-devotees, and then you won't be able to follow the regulated principles. So he was saying how Prabhupada was telling Vraj Bihari how important it is to have those devotee friendships. Very important. And a good community, a safe community, is where devotees, if they're having some challenges or just want to reveal their heart and their minds, that they feel safe enough to do that, and to express themselves, and it won't, become the next gossip or something like that. Any problem? Okay, so you need to unmute my microphone. Then it's unmuted now. Is that all right? Okay. All right, so, and then, we quoted this the other day, Guyam Akyati Prichdati, right, from the Upadekshamrita, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially. These are symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. So it's, and I think we also spoke last week about how important friendships are in devotional service. It's very important to have at least one or two really deep friendships. Any problem? Oh. Okay, how's that? So they couldn't hear a word I said until now? Calculating. What to do? Yes, so friendships, do I have it here? Prabhupada would talk about, he would say, one time he said, take very good care of Anand Prabhu. He is my very dear brother and friend. Right? And I don't know if anyone here knows Nirguna Mataji. Nirguna Mataji is a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. She lives in Vrindavan. Prabhupada initiated her when she was 14 years old. And Prabhupada was friends with her father. And he was a Bengali gentleman living in Calcutta. And he would, one time when he went to their house, and she was in the next room just kind of listening. And of course they were speaking in Bengali. And Prabhupada was revealing his heart and his mind to his friend. One time she mentioned that one time he said, I can't control this movement. It's out of my control. It's spreading all over the world, and I'm doing my best. But like that, just expressing his to his friend. Like that. So it's important. Otherwise, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wouldn't mention it. It's something that, if we don't have that kind of relationship with a devotee, we should work on it. We should work on it, find someone, and we can just follow Rupa Goswami's simple advice, right? Umte Bojais, invite them for prasadam, take prasadam with them, give them gifts, accept gifts. Reveal your mind and confidence. This is the exchanges of love shared by one devotee and another. And also study, especially the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you really, there's different ways to study the Chaitanya Charitamrita. One of them is just focus on the relationships. Look at the way Lord Chaitanya related with the devotees. Look at the way different devotees related with one another. We can learn a lot about this aspect of Krishna consciousness by focusing when we're reading Chaitanya Charitamrita on the relationships. So sweet, so subtle sometimes, the different ways that they relate with one another. It's really beautiful. Anything, questions, comments, thoughts on social, emotional aspect of our life? Yes, Bill?
When devotees come
There's a
together,
microphone coming its way if you want to use it.
when devotees come together on weekends, so since we're all working in the outside world, many of us.
Hold the mic like this.
So,
Yeah.
So when we come on weekends, then we want to, as you said, socialize
Uh-huh.
on two levels. One is, we want to do Krishna Katha, but we also want to, pour out our, discuss about the outside world, for example, if it is for those who are working. So in some sense, it is, it can just be seen as a vent, a vent to, like,
Venting.
venting out, just talking about what happened this week and things like that.
Yeah.
It may not necessarily be a very healthy, or should we see it that way?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, the goal is Machjita Makata Prana Purayantas Paraspara, that devotees come together and they share their Krishna conscious realizations. So, if we can, maybe we can talk about, I was reading about this and this is happening in the world, and aren't we so fortunate, and then kind of direct it to Krishna, aren't we so fortunate that we're devotees and these things don't affect us the same way they affect non-devotees. Some non-devotees get so caught up in the latest news, and for us, it's, we're aware of it, but it's, so that kind of discussion, we kind of dovetail it in Krishna consciousness. At the same time, even Prabhupada would sometimes be on a morning walk in to say good morning. And the devotees wonder, why didn't he say Hare Krishna? They're going to benefit if they say, just like, good morning. So it's tricky because sometimes we only come together for a brief period of time, right? If we have a longer period of time, then it's easier to kind of do both, so to speak. I like to say if you invite someone over for prasadam, like another couple, let's say you're married and you invite another couple over for prasadam, then it's good to at least do something kind of formally Krishna conscious. Okay, let's have a kirtan for 10 minutes. Let's read some shlokas. And then, of course, whatever, how are the kids and, the regular kathas of the world. But at least make sure that that's there. But I was with my Guru Maharaj recently in Australia, and his family, his wife and 2 children, and some disciples. And we were taking prasadam together, and we would talk about this and that, but then at some point he would say, tell me something about Krishna. Right? And everyone had to say something about Krishna. And of course, he's Vraj Bihari, so he's an exalted devotee. But it really, he just said, okay, it kind of at a certain point, he didn't say it, but he said, okay, boss, now, tell me something about Krishna. And of course, he knows so much about, so he would comment on what he was reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita or something like that. So it's a nice thing sometimes. We did that the other day, right? Yeah. And we were taking prasadam together. And we said, tell me something about Krishna. And it's very nice to talk about Krishna. It's not boring, it's not hackneyed, it's not dry, it's really sweet. Especially when you ask the devotee, tell me something about Krishna, because then they're going to usually tell you something about their realization. Is that right?
not always, I mean, it's something relevant we have to discuss, like, I meet another devotee, I want to activate his professional life.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
You know,
That's Vaishnava Seva.
we talk about immigration, for example. Oh, I'm finding this difficulty, that difficulty.
Yeah, that's okay. Of course, that's dealing with, because it's also connected with Krishna in a lot of ways. You know, being able to stay here, or what is it? Be a PR? Is that what it's called? Permanent resident. Yeah. Yes. Okay, spiritual meaning making. Well, of course, we know Panch Anga Bhakti, right? In Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. There's 59 angas of bhakti that are mentioned, 59 of them, and then 5 are mentioned again to make it 64. And these are the 4 and the 5. I think you know them, but you know, keeping our life focused around these 5 is wonderful. And to answer your question, association with devotees is by Rupa Goswami. He's basically saying Krishna Katha, hearing Krishna Katha, hearing the Bhagavatam. So it's almost like the second one and the fourth one are almost the same. Right? But, you know, Nam Kirtan, chanting Hare Krishna, Bhagavat Shravanam, worshipping the deity, associating with devotees, living in a holy place or making your home a holy place. Like that. We even talked the other day, make your car a holy place, make it nice and clean and sattvic. So when you get into it, you're like, your mind is peaceful. Maybe there's a picture of Lord Nrsimhadev or Krishna or something, something on the dashboard, but just going into a clean car is nice. I've heard devotee, what to speak of all of these other things. So our life can be focused on, these are called Swarup Siddhi Bhakti. These are, you do these in this world, and you do the same things in the spiritual world. Right? You associate with devotees, you chant Krishna's glories, you hear about Krishna in the spiritual world, you worship Krishna in the spiritual world, you're in a holy place all the time. And so, there's Aropya Siddhi, but there's different kind, like Aropya Siddhi Bhakti is someone who's working a job and then giving some of the fruits to Krishna. And that's good, that's wonderful. Right? It's, what's that? Yad karosi yadasasi yad karosi tadasi yad. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. But there should be time in our lives for this, exclusively this, turning off our phone, putting it on, mute, no notifications, and doing these things with absorption, focus. Yeah? And thoughts on this, on the spiritual focus of our life? Panch Anga Bhakti. Yes, Mataji, in the back, right in the back.
Krishna Prabhu. When it comes to associating with devotees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we knowingly or unknowingly offend a devotee, then it's like we have to ask forgiveness. Even we sincerely ask forgiveness, the relationship doesn't become normal, or the other party doesn't really associate with us. So what should we do?
Don't offend them in the first place.
I mean, accidentally, or it just becomes like that during an association.
Yeah,
If suppose unknowingly we do it.
One devotee once joked with me, he said, devotees, you can't live with them, you can't live without them. Right? Because it's true, it's like a double-edged sword. Associating with devotees, we have to be so careful, because Lord Chaitanya compared, what did he compare a Vaishnava aparad to? Yeah, and what does an elephant do in a nice garden? The mad elephant? You can just, there's some interesting videos on YouTube about that. You see elephants going crazy, especially in South India, and then everyone's running for shelter. So what to speak if he was in a garden? Right? So we do want to be very, very careful about talking ill about devotees. What did somebody call it? He's listening to a lecture where Satchidanand Swami. Something Kata, I know Brahmya Kata, but that wasn't the word he was using. Oh, Krishna. Anyway, if it comes to me, I'll tell you. Yeah, so that's unfortunate because if we do offend a devotee, we beg forgiveness, and even if they forgive us, I've seen the opposite happen. I've seen that improves relationships, that it sweetens relationships. So if that happens and it doesn't, what to do? We can still maybe try to find some ways to serve that devotee. One year at the GBC meetings, we came up with this idea of doing, we called it Agyata Sakha. Sakha means friend, right? And Agyata means unknowing. So we put all the names of the GBCs in a hat, and everyone had to pick a name, right? And then they had to serve that other devotee without them knowing it. Right? So sometimes a devotee would come back, after evening arti at one of the GBCs, and they'd see some prasadam hanging in a bag at their door, or something that would just put their shoes in a way that they can just slip right into their shoes. Or they just had to find a way to serve them, right? So maybe we can find a way to serve that devotee also. Otherwise, what to do? We may just have to say, okay, well, I need to find another friend. But if we can find some way to do some service, that often softens the heart. That's the best I can think of for that one. Other questions, comments? Okay. So how are we doing time-wise? So we still have time. So Prabhupada also, he put this as priorities. He wrote this once in Vrindavan. Health, he said, was the first priority because I said this already, when you're really sick, it's really hard to do your other spiritual things. And then sadhana, and then seva. He said that as our priorities. Interesting, right? And he signed his letters, almost all of his letters, I hope this meets you. Anyone know? In good health. In good health. Your ever well-wisher. I hope this meets you good. And in the early days, sometimes when different devotees were ill, Prabhupada would actually write them letters, telling them, take do massage with mustard seed, take this, don't eat that. He would give specific, suggestions. After all, he was a pharmacist, he knew about health. Right? So it's an interesting list of priorities. We usually don't think that this would be Prabhupada's list. Right? And then, just be sane. This is a famous verse. Does anyone know who spoke this verse? It was Lord Brahma. Stanestita shrutigatam tanam manmanobhya. Those who, even while remaining situated in their established social position, so all those people here in white, you don't have to take sannyas tomorrow. You can stay in your position, but with your body, minds, words, offer all respects to descriptions of Krishna's personality and activities. And Lord Chaitanya quoted this one time when to a devotee who wanted to just join him and travel with him. And Lord Chaitanya, stay where you are, but tam man manovi, but hear shuti gatam, but hear about me. Right? So very, so again, I put this in the slides because we don't have to do anything big, major changes in our life. Pick up and move to Mayapur tomorrow, which is nice if you can do that. But anyway, add Krishna, add hearing and chanting with Krishna, and try to increase it whenever you can. If you're commuting to work and you're on the MRT, is that right? Put in your headphones and listen to a nice lecture about Krishna, right? And find ways to always hear about Krishna whenever possible. So now we're going to learn about lessons from Khichdi. How many of you know how to cook Khichdi? Not too many. Okay, so ladies, do you know how to make Khichdi? Okay, no wonder you're so happy. Okay, so let's talk about Khichdi and what lessons we can learn from it. But many of you from South India, so khichdi is not as big a staple as it is from North India, right? But tell me, even if you're, and how many of you are cooks of any kind? Okay, so tell me if this is a good recipe. Look at it very carefully. Tell me if this is a good recipe. Oops. You're laughing. Why are you laughing? Too much salt. Anything else? Could you imagine having as much hing or asafoetida as rice? Or as much salt as rice? Or as much turmeric? Haldi? It would be terrible, right? Right? So, the goal with a good khichdi is not to have the same amount of each ingredient, but to have the appropriate amount of each. Right? Make sense? A balanced life is like a good khichdi. Okay, the appropriate amount of everything in our life. So let's talk about some lessons we can learn from khichdi. And if you haven't eaten yet today, I hope I'm not making you super hungry. Okay, so you pay attention to what a good khichdi tastes like. And I think we mentioned this yesterday. We also pay attention to what a balanced life looks like. We're getting enough rest, we're eating properly, we're doing our sadhana really attentively, we're chanting our rounds nicely, we're reading the Shastra, we're being friendly with other people, devotees and non-devotees, because there's one kind of aparad called jana aparad. That's the offense to just regular people, right? So, so we know what a good balanced life is, just like we know when we have a good khichdi or whatever, upma or lemon rice or yogurt rice. I'm trying to think of South Indian preparations. Right? A good sambar, right? You know what a good sambar is, right? So we know what it is. Oh, this very well done, right? Or a rasam, right? If you're rasam, like all these different things. So we know what a good prasadam tastes like. We should also know what a good balanced life is like. Make sense? So then we know when prasadam has gone off, right? You smell that khichdi, oh, time to feed it to the living entities, right? But not to eat anymore. So also it's good to know when our life is not in balance. We're working so hard, we're chanting our rounds while we're driving, or while we're watching television, or while we're doing so many other things, and we're not getting enough rest, and we're eating in the mode of passion just as quickly as we can, and not, we say, Sharira Vidya Pranirako Chaitanya Nitai, we make the prayer quicker, things like that, right? We have an idea when our life is out of balance. Just like we know when prasadam is off, right? And we shouldn't eat it. Someone gave me chestnuts. Do you get chestnuts here? Yeah, so they gave me a bag of chestnuts in Australia, and they're kind of wet. They're in a sealed bag, but they're kind of. So I opened it, offered to Krishna. I had some, but then here the weather here is so humid. The next day when I opened it up, it was just all white stuff covering all the, Okay, so then we do something practical just like a really good cook. A really good cook knows how to just do a little experimenting, right? They try a new vegetable, they add a little more salt, they add a little less salt. One of my close friends, he's very well to do. He has a mansion with 7 bedrooms in it, right? So he gave Jamuna Mataji and Dina Tarini Mataji a whole wing of the house. And it was for 2.5 years, that's when she wrote her cookbook. You know Jamuna, one of Prabhupada's first disciples? Very famous. She has a samadhi in Vrindavan, in the ISKCON property. A very advanced devotee, very advanced. And Prabhupada was the one, she was the first person Prabhupada taught how to cook. Like when her sister was getting married at 26 Second Avenue, Jamaica. Prabhupada taught her how to cook. And he kept on saying, wash hands, wash hands. And she wrote an award-winning book called Lord Krishna's Cuisine, The Art of Vegetarian Cooking. It won an award, very famous book. And she practiced all the recipes while living at this devotee's house for 2.5 years. And he saw how she would, sometimes, she was so expert, she'd add a little this, a little that, just to get it exactly right. So we can also do that with our schedule, with our life. Okay, well, maybe you try reading before chanting. No, that didn't work so well. Now, better I chant my rounds and then read. Or I read better at this time of day. Or I, do this at that time of day. Or, so we can adjust and, play around a little bit with our life to see what works best. Many of us, we have different biorhythms. When our mind is sharp, usually in the morning, the mind is sharp. And usually by the afternoon, especially if we have a big lunch, it's kind of, right? Like that. So know when is a good time to do really cognitive things like studying or really chanting with attention. Of course, we all know that the Brahma Muhurta is the best time for that, right? The time before sunrise. And one time Prabhupada, I don't know if it was Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to quote this a lot. And I'm not saying you can do this, it depends on your life, but he said if you get all of your rounds done before Mangalarti, you definitely go back to Godhead. So, as a brahmachari, we used to do that. We used to get up at 2 in the morning and then chant our rounds before Mangalarti. But we had to go to bed early to do it. Right? You can't, it's, like that. Anyway, you understand my point? We can adjust, we can, look at how we spend our 24 hours and see if there's some adjustments that we can make to make it more favorable for our bhakti. The immediate goal is we want to know that whatever I'm doing right now is the right thing to do. It brings great peace of mind. Sometimes the mind is hanging, oh no, but I should be doing that, or no, I could be doing this, right? But no, so one way to achieve shanti, is whatever I'm doing right now, that's the right time. If let's say I'm, talking to a friend and spending some time, we shouldn't be thinking, oh, but I could be chanting my japa right now. I hope this conversation ends real quick, right? No, but we decide, okay, now's the time to be with this friend and, have some Krishna Kathar or take, they're going through some anxiety. So they're going through some anxiety. We shouldn't be in anxiety about looking at our watch every 5 minutes, right? Like that. Or if we're chanting, we shouldn't be thinking, oh, but I have this to do today and I have that to do and so many things. We try to just, whatever we're doing, we have a peace of mind that that's what we should be doing at this time. And I think I told you about this as something Vraj Bihari told me many years ago. We can always be asking ourselves at any time of the day, what's my service right now? Because we're Krishna's servants. So the servant asks, what's my service? So some questions, comments on Kitri? On the example to lead a balanced life. Yes, go ahead, no, go first.
Prabhu, like if we eat more,
If we eat more,
if we eat more, is it affect our intelligence or brain cells? Is it work together? If we eat more, is it?
have you had that experience?
According to my age, I eat okay. But sometimes I feel.
Has anyone ever had that experience when you really eat more than you should? How you feel afterwards? Sleepy, yeah. Often. Some Ayurveda says if you let it rest for 5 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes on your left side, it really gives you a lot more energy afterwards, by the way. Just a little hint from Ayurveda. You don't even have to sleep, but just lie on your left side. It helps digestion. But, so, yeah, that's the problem with eating too much. You feel sleepy.
Is there any age like 15 to 30 you can eat X amount?
Is there an age? It really depends on your constitution and, like we said, how much physical work you do. And like we said, for someone who's just coming to Krishna consciousness, just take prasad as much as you like. Right? As much as you like, let them take prasad. It's so purifying. Right? But we don't tell a 50-year-old devotee, a 50-year-old who's been a devotee 25 years, just eat. So it depends. That's why we have that joke, different shloks for different folks. So, different times in our life we do different things. But yes, because in one sense, prasadam is our only sense gratification. Right? No gambling, no illicit sex, no meeting, right? So it's not the end of the world if we take a lot of prasadam, it's making sure it's prasadam. Right? It's prasadam. So that's the main point. The first point is only eat food offered to Krishna. That's the first point. But then if we're servants, right? If I'm Krishna's servant, and if I eat so much that I can't do my service, then I'm not a very good servant. Right? But it's interesting how Prabhupada writes how a servant enjoys almost on the same level as the master. Right? And we experience that, devotees, when we're absorbed in doing service to Krishna, it's such a wonderful thing. Right? I experienced this once. I was staying at the house of a very wealthy person in Delhi. I was doing some writing, and so I just needed a peaceful place. Right? So they have a big house, and they gave me a room and everything, so it was very nice. So they were wealthy people, but they went out to work every day, right? And then I noticed what happened. The servants in the house, right? So the servants in the house, when they're here, they're in the morning, it's like, yes, sir, and they're cooking and running around and doing all kinds. Once the owner leaves, they start cooking for themselves, turning on the television, enjoying life. It was so interesting to see. That I remember, yes, the servant enjoys almost on the same level as the master. Yeah.
Now one more question.
Yes.
If we are in some place like into Kashmir and we are staying in some hotel and we do not have any food which we can offer to, we can offer, it's a vegetarian without any garlic we can get, but we are not able to
Yeah.
If there is no temple nearby, then how to offer to Krishna that time?
Well, in your mind. What I would do when I had to do business meetings, and I don't know if this is practical at restaurants here, but I would order salad, and just olive oil and some salt, like that.
And from your mind with the
And also, most people understood that I was a devotee, and they would usually pick a vegetarian restaurant. But even then, I would usually order salad just to be on the safe side. But Prabhupada, now if you're getting details, there's kacha and pakka. And kacha is things that are boiled. Kacha, actually, it's a subtle thing, but Prabhupada would sometimes take fried things. Fried things are called pakka. And he would take a samosa sometimes off, when he was traveling on a train in India, he would say, go buy some samosas. Things like that. So the thing is to be honest with Krishna. That's the point. You may think, ooh, if I go traveling, I could have samosas from my favorite store, right? And instead of, I could pack some nice prasadam from home and take that, right? But that's more boring, right? But so, so we have to be honest with ourselves. But in different situations, we do the best we can. But that was something that Prabhupada did. He would sometimes eat fried things. It's not so good for your health, but apparently, karmically, it's better, right? You're nodding your head, yeah. But, as a general rule, especially grains cooked by non-devotees, they affect the mind. And Prabhupada was quite strong about avoiding that as a general rule. Time, place, and circumstance, like that. And then, but we can still we can offer it in our mind. If we're in a hotel room, we can actually pay obeisances and offer it nicely. But when I'm if I'm in a restaurant with other business people, I don't get down on the floor of the restaurant. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Vishnu Padaya, right? I offer it in my mind. But I always thought salad was pretty safe. I don't know, salad's a big thing in America and other places. I don't know so much Singapore here. But you can, I notice there are some restaurants here that are Jain, right? And so you can at least make sure there's no onions, garlic.
So Prabhu, you prefer not to do lunch meetings, dinner meetings with our clients?
I try to avoid, but sometimes it's, Prabhupada mentions it in Nectar of Instruction, that it's a form of exchange of love. It's in that verse, Guguya Maketi, the purport, that businessmen sometimes, they take lunch together. He's talking about Bhukte Bojayate Chai Baba. It's a natural thing to do, isn't it? I found, at least in America, that people were sensitive. Even when we went they would order vegetarian food if I was there. Just because. But it's interesting, and I don't want to speak ill of others, but one time my good friend Shonaka Rishi Prabhu is in charge of the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies, amazing devotee. What he's done is just incredible. Devotees go there and get PhDs in devotional things from the most important university in the world. Right? So he's kind of a well-known person. He's on BBC a lot and all. So one time he was at a program with the Dalai Lama, and he was sitting at the same table. So he also did this thing. He ordered some salad, and the Dalai Lama actually ordered meat, right? And he was sitting across from Shonaka, and he kind of felt guilty. So he was kind of like this as he was eating, because he knew that, right? Buddhist. Paka Buddhism is to not eat meat, fish, or eggs. And again, I'm not trying to criticize other people, but it was interesting like that. So, most people in this world are appreciate, and most good people at least will appreciate that. If we go out to a restaurant, could we not go to a steak restaurant? Could we go to a vegetarian restaurant? Could we do that? Usually people, at least in the West, people oblige. Actually, sometimes I found in India it was harder. I found it was actually harder sometimes in India than in the West. They said, no, the restaurant says veg and non-veg. Right? What does that mean? Every restaurant is veg and non-veg. Even a steakhouse has potatoes and, aloo or something. It's veg, it means non-veg. I always, that's cheating. Veg and non-veg. Isn't it? Yes.
How about people who are in university and they went to college and they're in the canteen, everybody's having non-veg and they are bring their home food, and they prefer to sit with them, or they find another corner to eat?
It depends. They might share some of their prasadam with the others, especially if it's really nice prasadam.
But if somebody having non-veg, then how can they sit with them easily? Is it right?
It depends. Time, place, and circumstance.
So you have to adjust according to that.
Yeah, we have to adjust. Yes, sir.
My question was, because we spoke about khichdi and balancing the ingredients.
Yes.
So is it really possible to balance, like you said, what it means, we should know what it means to live a balanced life.
Yes.
But at a given point in our lives, it seems like something takes priority.
Of course.
And that almost necessarily means something else is imbalanced.
Yes.
For example, when we are in our 20s and 30s, we have to run behind our profession. So inevitably, maybe association takes a back seat.
Right.
And if I run behind health, then maybe my sadhana, my sadhana takes a back seat to some extent, because if I have to walk or I have to walk an hour a day. So it seems that something will be imbalanced at any point in life.
Yes. But at least we recognize then we decide what does balance look like at this time in my life, right? Just like I'm semi-retired now, so I used to have a 9 to 5 job, so that then I had a different. Now I don't have that anymore. So what does my life look like differently now? when I was 50 years old or something like that. So yes, different times. You know, my wife was, you know, running a school, but when she had a child, she decided to take 5 years off. Because, you know, we hear that, you know, the first 5 years of a child's life is so important for them psychologically and spiritually, etc. So she could do that because we were living in Vrindavan. You don't spend much money when you live in Vrindavan, especially in the 90s. Everything was, you know, so she could do that. But that means, you know, she would, you know, be really taking care of our son. But that time ended when he went to school, and she had more time, and then she took up her service again. So we do different things at different times in our life.
Why ISKCON is talking so much about HB? Because like we Singaporeans, our lifestyle is different. We take only break, early morning bread, Milo, that's our food, you know. Even up to today, if I see khichdi, I don't feel like eating because it's soggy food.
I don't know this isn't very soggy though. Right? That doesn't look very soggy. That one, right? Looks like pretty dry khichdi. Prabhupada called it a poor man's feast. He called it a poor man's feast. But if you don't like khichdi, don't worry, you can still be a devotee. So let's talk about your question. So there's different aspects of our life, right? These might be some of them. For a brahmachari, it's different sometimes, but our sadhana, definitely, our health, sharing Krishna consciousness, preaching, our finances, that may not be for a brahmachari. Our family, well, it's a little bit for a brahmachari, because brahmacharis also have parents. As last I checked, is that right? Most brahmacharis have parents. Yeah. I thought there was a very nice thing that they do at the Eco Village in Govardhan Eco Village. They built a whole huge apartment block, and it's for the parents of brahmacharis. Right. What a nice thing, right? Service, our occupation, friendships, intellectual, relaxation. I think I told that story about Prabhupada and the yellow fever. No? One time Prabhupada was returning to Calcutta from Africa. And in order to enter into India at that time, you needed a yellow fever certificate. So Prabhupada knew that if he was quarantined, they would give him a nice place, you know, because he's the son. So he said he didn't have it, so they quarantined him. So for 6 days he was in quarantine. And then on the 7th day he told the devotees, call the Calcutta temple, my yellow fever certificate's in my Almira, tell them to bring it to the airport. So Prabhupada just needed a break. He just needed some time. And, what an intense life he had, right? Going around the world 14 times in 11 years, always being around super young disciples, asking questions about everything. So he just needed, a spiritual chuti. So some alone time. So this is something we can do actually. You can, I can send this to you, or you can Google, what do they call, Life Circle, Life Circle Coaching Life Circle. And on Google, if you can find something like this. I just spiritualized it a little bit, but you can get your level of satisfaction, how satisfied you feel with your japa, 1 to 10. So you would fill it up, let's say you're a really good chanter, it would go almost all the way to the top, you could fill it in with a marker. And then what about your reading and hearing? What about your service, your health, your friendships, your relationship with seniors, your guru, your family relationships, your mental health, how much anxiety you find. And you can grade yourself like that and see how balanced your life is. So here's an example of somebody. I just got this off the internet, so it's a little different than the one I have, but you can see how his is not very balanced. Somehow environment is a 9. I guess he has a nice house to live in, right? Or what's that one? That's a cunt. What's the bottom one? That's an 8. I can't see it so well.
His contribution.
Contribution, okay, so maybe he's really doing a lot at work, but look, his finances are pretty bad. Fun, forget about it, his health is terrible. Right, so this, you can see that doesn't look like a wheel, it looks like a funny shaped thing, right? So ideally it would be, a little bit, you get the idea. So you can actually do that, you can actually take some time and fill this in and see where your life is at in each of these aspects. And like you said, Prabhu, it might be that you're a junior person in the office, and therefore you're expected to work 12 hours or whatever it is. You're really expected to work like a dog, right? So that your reading still could be satisfying. It could be pretty high because whenever you find time, at least you do it, right? Or but anyway, it's just an idea about looking at how to live a balanced life. And this is a very interesting diagram from a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But I've seen many devotees very easily can relate this to Krishna consciousness. So there's these four quadrants. So the first one, Q1, urgent and important. So those are things we have to do. They're important and they're urgent. Some of these examples, whatever, deadlines, pressing problems, unforeseen events, but or just, you have to pay your water bill, right? If you put that off, there's no water next month. Is that right? Or whatever, right? So there's things that are urgent and important. Those have to get done. But you see the next one, quadrant 2. This is the most important one, and the one that is easy to put off. And that is not urgent, but important. If you have 5 samosas today, it's not that you're going to die, right? But over a period of time, if you keep doing that, you're going to hurt your health. If you don't read today, you're not going to, bloop, right? But it is important, right? If you don't, if you're not nice to your children today, they'll still be there tomorrow, right? So it's not urgent, but it is important. And when we think about things, we probably put most of our important things in quadrant 2. It's shreyas, not prayas. You know these 2 words, shreyas and prayas? Shreyas means, it comes from the word priya, short-term gain, and shreyas is long-term gain. So this is all long-term. If you don't do any exercises today, it's not that you're going to gain 10 kgs by tomorrow, right? But it is important to take care of our health. That's quadrant 2. So as much of our life as possible, we should live in quadrant 2. And quadrant 3 is the trickiest one of all. Urgent, but not important. Right? That's where the trickiness is. We sometimes think, no, it's like quadrant 1. That it's actually not so important, but it's urgent. And then the real time wasters are in quadrant 4. Watching television, scrolling unnecessarily on the internet, playing games, time gossiping, speaking ill about other devotees, right? Just avoiding hard work. You should be doing your work, and you just, anything but that, you just go on YouTube instead. So the idea is, so somebody says, as Prabhu was kind of hinting at, I don't have much time for quadrant 2. So what we should look for is, are there things in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 that we can get rid of to do more quadrant 2? Does that make sense? So we can apply this easily to our Krishna consciousness. When are we wasting time? And can we switch from 3 and 4 to 2 and put more time into reading, put more time into chanting extra rounds? Prabhupada didn't say 16 rounds bas, right? He said at least 16 rounds. Like sometimes we're like, last beat of the last, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Right? So we can can chant extra, because it's nice to do that. It's nice to do that. One time when a devotee was having really big problems in his material desires, Prabhupada said, just chant 64 rounds. Now I'm not saying we can do that, but yeah. So questions, comments on this diagram or this one? Thoughts on it? Yes, Prabhu.
Sorry to, actually I joined a bit late, so I'm just trying to link up
Hold the mic like this.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. So Prabhu, I'm trying to link up the conflict resolution with the lifestyle.
You were here for the beginning.
Yes, I understand.
I said that we covered the most important parts of conflict resolution, which is the 5 different ways that you can deal with the conflict, and the idea of the positions, like you see in the iceberg, and the interest. And I said we're going to spend today is the qualities of a conflict resolver as a devotee who can actually help others.
Okay.
And I gave the example, the example of on the airplane, you put your mask on first before help you. So when we are satisfied in our bhakti, we have a much freer mind to help others.
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mataji in the back.
Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, is it very important that must read every day, or we can just listen to classes?
Oh, hearing about Krishna. Yeah, hearing about Krishna, one way or the other. In some place it says hearing is, in some places, so don't get me wrong, some place it says hearing is better than reading. So one way you can deal with that is you can read out loud, even if it's to yourself. That's sometimes helpful, because then you're also engaging the ear. And we can do different kinds of reading. One kind of reading that also learned from Vraj Bihari, he calls it prayerful reading. That you don't read to cover a lot, but you just read, one sentence at a time, and really, when you come to a sentence that really has an impact on you, meditate on it and think about it like that. So that can be. So reading, but Prabhupada would say, he said, the one criticism I have of my disciples is they think my books are for distributing and not for reading. And then he did a little skit, and he played the part of a devotee. He said, my dear sir, please take this book. Then he played the part of the gentleman, and he said, what's it about? And then he played the part of the devotee. He says, I don't know, I just distribute it. So he said, Prabhupada said, I've written these books for you, the devotees. And naturally, if we read, then we're going to be more inspired to distribute, because we know what's inside them. And we think, wow, this has such a transformational, it can act so much on a person's life. So then we're more encouraged to distribute. So we should read, or we can read out loud. But also, if our nature is to listen. So I was telling everyone last week. When I first moved to India, I had one of those silver trunks filled with cassettes. Did I mention that last week? Because we had cassettes in the 90s. Anyone know what a cassette is?
Yeah,
Okay, good. Few of you. All right. So I remember when I moved to India, it was very heavy. And those metal trunks you can cut, it rips your kurta very easily if you get like that. Anyway, so now all of those same things you have on an MP3 player this big, right? Or it's just part of your phone. Right? It's amazing. So we have all of Prabhupada's lectures at our command. It's amazing. And Prabhupada's lectures are just out of this world. And then there's over 10,000 lectures on ISKCONDesiretree.com. So, like that, and we all may have our favorites. Some of my favorites are Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, if I really want to. He's so intelligent, it's incredible. He's so well read, and he's such a good speaker. So he's one of my favorites. And of course, Vraj Bihari and Satchidananda Swami. Satchidananda Swami just speaks from the heart so much, so I like to listen to him. So those are 3 that I often listen to a lot. But I try to listen to Srila Prabhupada regularly because it's just so powerful. So yes, you can do. But it can be and, not or. Also. But sometimes, we like to listen to. And there's so many, I don't mean, that's just some of mine, but there's so many great Vaishnavas in our organization that you can hear them speak. Devakinanda Prabhu, his kirtans are so wonderful. Personally, my favorite kirtan is Kripa Moya Prabhu. Really, because I know, sometimes when you know a person and then you hear their kirtan, it has you know how pure their heart is, and you feel you're relating with them. Yeah. Other questions, comments on this? Yes, Prabhu? Oh, did you have a? Well, Mataji has another point, so wait. Give it back to her. Abuzi, I'm jealous of you because you're going to get into your 10,000 steps today. And I only have 1,800 so far, yes?
Is it offensive that we pick and choose our speakers, even for classes?
Oh, it's a maha aparad. No, we have, it's okay. We don't put down the others. I didn't say all the others are just, useless. No, of course we don't say that. But we may have certain devotees that inspire us. That's okay. If you're a Hindi speaker, for example, you may be more inspired by, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj and listening to his classes in Hindi, or listening to Prabhupada's lectures in Hindi, right? Or others, if you're Russian, you might, like Chaitanya Chandra Charan Prabhu or Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj when they speak, Or if you're just, you're really kind of a heart person, you might choose Satyananda Swami. If you're more like an intellectual person, right, you might listen to Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu's presentations, right, or somebody like that, is quoting, who knows so many shlokas. So it's okay. If you like to listen to a lot of Leela, right, like Gauranga Leela, you might listen to His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj, right? He's full of Gauranga Leela. So, yeah. If you like to hear stories about stool, I remember that for many years, not so much now, but Radha Swami in his earlier lectures, he would inevitably be talking about, the material world and bring up, things like that. Also, he had, some of his, his parikramas and listening to, if you like parikramas, listening about Leela, Radha Swami, Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, Indradumna Maharaj, especially if you want to hear a lot about Vraj, Indradumna Maharaj is wonderful for that. So, different devotees. But don't neglect Prabhupada's lectures. Prabhupada's lectures are, just amazing. Is that all right? But it's not just don't think, oh, I don't like, so it's good. Don't think like that. Just think, I have this. We don't have to, I like this point that we don't have to always be in comparison. This is the best Paneer Sabji I ever had. Why not just say this is a wonderful Paneer Sabji? Why not say that was the best kirtan? Why not say that was a wonderful kirtan? You see the difference? One is comparing, and one is just saying that something is wonderful. So we don't say, no, this is the best class on Vrindavan, on Govardhan Hill. No, why not? Then that kind of puts down the other classes on Govardhan Hill. Why not just say this is a wonderful? I thought it was open. I heard that this is a wonderful talk. So it's a subtle thing, but. Yes, we have a microphone in your hand for a reason.
Hare Krishna. So you said 16 rounds are there minimum, so it's okay.
For initiated devotees.
No, for us also, like we are not initiated, but we do 16 rounds.
Aspiring for initiation, yes.
And there are like for undergraduate and graduates, like if they are doing 16 rounds a day, and they want to do more, and tomorrow is the exam and the study time is going on. So what they need to do, like they must stop at 16 and they need to finish their schoolwork, college work.
They can stop at 16, as long as they keep their promise. Yeah. Promise that 16 rounds, follow 4 regular principles, and go back to bed. Now, he did say also there was a quality to that chanting of 16 rounds. It's not that you just go shnick, shnick, giddy, 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 you know, and then you're going to go back to Godhead. No, that you have to actually ultimately come to Shuddhanam. Right? There's Namaparat, Namabhas, and Shuddhanam. So, yeah. Let me just see in the last few minutes if there's anything else I wanted to, so many things. One thing I just wanted to say, the mode of goodness. So we talked about this at the university yesterday. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, forget the past that sleeps, nor in the future dream at all, but be in times that are with thee, and progress ye shall call. Bhakti only happens in the present. Right? Also, I think, yes, and Krishna says, Nasoshati nakanchati. Don't lament about the past, don't hanker for the future. And isn't that an important point? Bhakti only happens in the present. Okay? So in the mode of goodness, we're in the present, we can distance ourselves from our thoughts, we can witness our mind going this way and that way, and we have a freedom of choice. But Rajas, we start thinking about the future. Right? And our mind is drawn away from the present. And there's nothing wrong with making plans, but unnecessary plans when the mind just starts, and especially worrying about, anyone worry about the future? Right? So worrying about the future, that's the mode of passion. Worrying what might happen. And then mode of ignorance is lamenting about the past. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. You can't take it back. It's different than learning from your mistakes. So bhakti happens in the present. So even if you chanted 15 terrible rounds, chant the last round really nicely. Don't say, well, I chanted 15 bad rounds, I might as well make it a full 16. Right? No, you have that choice. Buri Jumpu writes, be detached. If we find we haven't listened to our first 15 rounds, so you go, never mind. We do not have the freedom to bring those mantras back. Neither can we promise to do better in the future. We have only enough freedom to listen to the mantra, starting with the holy name we are chanting right now. There is no point lamenting about the past or worrying about the future. Better to simply hear the one mantra we are chanting in the present. Okay, so I just wanted to make that point. And this would just be fun. We don't have time for it. But I was also thinking of balancing different things in our life. Contradictory cliches. I just thought you'd find this a little fun. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Better safe than sorry. You see, you hear both sayings, right? The pen is mightier than the sword. Action speaks louder than words. Look before you leap. He who hesitates is lost. Two heads are better than one. If you want something done right, do it yourself. Great minds think alike. Fools seldom differ. And there's more. But the idea is that we don't always have to have the tyranny of or, this or that. There's a great quote here someplace. Let me if I can find it. This one. The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. So sometimes we have to balance things even philosophically in our life. Even like for this example, right? When what to do with Ashvatthama, right? So they found a balance. Kill him, not kill him. So Krishna found a way to kill him and not kill him at the same time. So our time is up. But thank you so much I hope this was helpful, interesting, and thank you for listening so attentively. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. What's that? Nothing? You want to kirtan that? What kind of kirtan?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
5-minute kirtan? Okay. Can we chant Yasamati Nanda?
Yeah,
That's my favorite one,
yeah, you should make it
as you noticed.
Did you play?
in case you don't know the lyrics. Oh, stop sharing. Okay. It should go on. No? I put it on. Wait. Oh, you got it there? Okay, you got it. Is it there? Yasomati Nandana Rajavarunagara Gokulavanjana Nana Yasomati Nandana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Kalyagamana Vrindavan Jagannatha Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi.
Hari Hari.
Jai Vraj Bihari Prabhu ki
Jai.